Reason, logic, and evidence, the great gods of the scientific community. How can one reconcile this God with the classical monotheisms of post antiquity? The first question that springs to mind is, does God exist? This question, somewhat irrelevant, rather a symptom of a much more fundamental question, that being, is there an ultimate truth? For my part, I don't believe there is a third party. Rejecting the idea that person A have their beliefs, person B differs, and finally a trinity of sorts who decides now or in some unspecified time frame a definitive reality, whether that be in A or B's interests. In my experience, the two groups of people who feel most threatened by this statement are theists and socialists, who shouldn't be, but we'll come back to that in a moment. First, let us look at what I do believe. I believe that everything in this reality is open to interpretation. I repeat, unapologetically, everything. There's no right and wrong, good or evil. Does this negate the worship of God, gods, or an ethical and moral society? No. What a theist might call right, I would call efficient. Wrong, inefficient. A socialist might say immoral, I would say unsustainable. Moral, sustainable. The aim here being to limit judgment and emotional attachment to outcomes. Why? Because I believe emotions are ultimately primal and lead individuals and societies to make decisions that have reasonable short-term outcomes at the expense of the long term. Here's where I turn the whole argument on its head and pay homage to the many true gods of reason, logic, and evidence. It would be blasphemous or unreasonable to assume I could win a democratic election on the aforementioned argument. It would be illogical to ask people to forsake their emotional, primal, self-interested instincts based upon the mountains of evidence in support of these claims. So where do we go from here? 1. Accept that we are predominantly emotional creatures with a virtue that distinguishes us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Our ability, through the medium of the scientific method, to override predetermined neurological and emotional patterns, delay gratification in order to secure our long-term interests and that of our offspring. You decide which is more godly. 2. The need to live in a consequential world where competing markets of ideas are subject to the law of trial and error, as opposed to theory. The bearers, investors, and followers of these ideas either enjoying the benefits or suffering the consequences of efficient or inefficient solutions as dictated by the marketplace. 3. Acceptance of A. Life is hard, difficult, a challenge, that there is no evidence of a pre- or post-antiquity utopia where life, for the want of many descriptions compounded into one, was happy. Moreover, for individuals to prioritize happiness above all other virtues is fundamentally erroneous. Rather accept the inevitable difficulties that life will present, armed with the knowledge that when an individual develops an efficient solution, all mankind ultimately benefits. The purpose of our existence is not happiness, it is survival, and this can only be secured by our continued technological progression. B. Know that this author, Adam Smith, and Karl Marx all concur. Humankind operates out of self-interest. Communists, capitalists, theists, atheists, males and females are all subject to this condition. More importantly, self-interest has secured our place on this earth from the first time our ancestors could stand on two legs to the time of writing, New Year's Eve 2016. Thus it is sustainable and immune from judgment until the last human is extinguished. Then and only then can we conclude.